All right, shalom, shalom. Thank you guys for joining another study. I have not been able to do a study in a long while, but definitely during that time, um, definitely have been growing. Definitely, so many different experiences to share over time, um, and just be able to encourage and exhort for you guys. It's obviously there's going to be some things in there that will definitely help your walk as well. And that's obviously, scripture based and everything like that. But I'm truly just grateful, to be able to start another study. And this is really the best study that I could have done to
Boo,
really um,
boo, boo.
get me flowing, um, get me flowing with everything else. So, and if you guys already know, I really, 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 really enjoy Hermas. It's probably the three books of Hermas is probably my top, to be honest. There's so much heat in there. But I'm just truly grateful to be back. And then, this one isn't really set up like our fellowship studies for those who are in the fellowship group. This is more going to be obviously, me teaching and just flowing because I'm not trying to spend too much time, but we're just gonna let the Ruach flow. And then of course, the chat, you guys always make sure you flow in the chat as well. But I've been grateful for you guys too that are able to share and connect some things and just be able to just have peace, with one another and being able to share and just be flowing in the Ruach. And ultimately, this is a very, 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 very timely study. Very timely study. So I will be amping myself up as far as my voice is concerned. Because obviously I can be very chill. Very chill. What's going on with you? But again, I'm just gonna let the Ruach flow. We're gonna enjoy this word, and it's gonna be some very edifying things in there. And to go ahead and just let it flow. But I'll go ahead and pray in and get it started. Dear Abba Yah, we thank you so much just for this time. We thank you for this blessed opportunity to be able to study your word and to be able to just divide this word like a surgeon as we study this for ourselves approved unto you, Abba Yah, and as workmen, dividing the truth, Abba Yah, just being able to be in your Ruach, doing so, not in our own minds, and we're willing to remove anything that is of our heart that is not of you, and remove anything that is not of you in our mind, so that way you can pour more of your heart, pour more of your spirit, of your mindset, of everything, your Torah, your instructions in us, Abiyah, as we receive the word and in fellowship style as well, and being able to understand that who I am is a servant unto my brothers and sisters in this word, and nothing more, Abiyah, and only ordained in you, Abiyah, to be able to do something like this. But Abiyah, we just thank you just for having brothers and sisters that are all pouring into the body, different gifts, different skill sets, different things that we all do. Abiyah. So I thank you for allowing me to be able to have this opportunity to be able to share to my brothers and sisters on the same level as we're all walking in the path of righteousness unto you, Abiyah. So I ask that also Yahushua HaMashiach, that you continue to guide us as you are the shepherd, and as continue to pull us towards you, so we may be able to be judged as righteous one day. And we thank you for the Ruach, for it to be fully unlocked in us. And we thank you for our eyes being open, our ear gates being open, our hearts being open for those who follow you and those who are truly, truly putting you on themselves, putting this crown on themselves, wearing you as a crown, so that we may walk as in the same character as you, be set apart truly in this world, in this world. And we just ask that you just allow us to get full understanding today, and also be able to research afterwards and not just stay on what we hear today, and that there's no itching ears. We bind that or rebuke that in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, Yahuwah Sabaoth. That never happens here, Abiyah. And we just truly just love you and thank you in the name of your son, Hamashiach, any of this, yeah, man. All right, y'all. So I think you guys can see this. I'm pretty sure you guys can. So it's saying I am screen sharing. Uh, so I'm pretty sure you guys can see this. I usually have a title page up. Right now I don't because I am first time flowing on the laptop. So it's all good, and I will continue to flow better and better and better. Um, but for the study prep, just simply as we always talk about, heart set, mindset, and spirit set, right? So we're trying to make sure we always go into these studies, at least if you guys are fellowshipping with me, in these studies or you're watching, at a later time, um, that your heart, is in a place where it's receptive to his word rather than, obviously it's not me. It's his word is flowing through me. I'm able to divide and, teach essentially, but just let Yah really work on your heart, whether, it's during the study, after the study, when you're taking your notes, even if you're talking about it afterwards, rereading, different things of that nature. Always make sure this is a heart work. He's working on your heart. That's a massive part about us truly making it to the end, and being possibly judged as righteous one day. You want your heart to be as pure as possible, in him, right? You want him to clean your heart and renewing you in a right spirit. So same thing with your mindset. We have to get stronger with our mindset. If you're constantly growing in the Most High and you're constantly saying that you love Him and you know of His Son and all these different things, right? You want to make sure that you are actually not just saying, right? You want to make sure that you are actually living it. And that also obviously will come in your works. It has to come through your work. It has to come through how you represent, what you say you represent and what you say you believe in and what you say you stand on. So when it's all said and done, we cannot, we cannot stay at a certain mindset that we used to have. All of us already know that, right? But you cannot continue to stay in a certain fleshly place. Obviously, that's not connected unto Yah, to his Ruach, and we cannot continue to do the same old thing, right? So very simply put is in Ephesians 4, it talks about the old man versus the new man, right? There's old wineskins and new wineskins. There's always something um, different. It's always something more for us to attain. Thank God, right? So we have to be able to come into these studies that are continuing at least. And if you have been, in the study for a while, you notice how they always level up somehow, or they're always connected somehow, and they're always moving with the seasons. And I'm super thankful for that. So where I've already been as far as the past few months or 3 months going through a bunch of things, and my family, we're pushing through and just learning, and my wife and I especially have grown tremendously in the Ruach and have been shown so much and have been taught so much to be able to, share with our brothers and sisters as well. It's just truly amazing to understand the sanctification process that we all go through, right? And being able to accept that sanctification process and understand that even when you're going through this, the enemy, he hates it. He wants to kill, steal, and destroy. He wants to hinder you. He wants to continue to keep you in your old man. So that means it's gonna try to provoke certain situations and all these different things to make you go back into your old ways. But remember, your ways are not God's ways, right? His ways are above all ways. His thoughts are not your thoughts. His thoughts are above your thoughts, right? So that's why we take all these different types of thoughts and these burdens of man and these different things that Yah was telling Ezra to also, relinquish them to the people, to relinquish, to bring all this into the captivity, right? Bring all these things into captivity, and for Yahusha to be able to bind those things and for him to destroy those things and make it captive unto him. That's because he is under his father. He's been given that authority to be able to bind and to be able to destroy and to be able to save and to be able to do all these different things. And obviously through the Ruach, we're connected, right? So we have to bring all this, right, into this new man, and we cannot stay the same. There's absolutely no way we can stay the same. And in any study from, any study I've ever been able to do, never have ever told Sheridan said stay the same, right? And of course, always the signature thing I will say, always go study more. This is always uh, a tool for you to go study more, right? And it's nothing to look at someone like even people that teach and things like that. You find it on YouTube and things like that. A lot of people eat from a lot of different tables, and that's totally fine, but you have to be careful in how you divide them. You have to be careful in what you're consuming and also being able to be like, okay, this doesn't match with this because I also want to go back and read in scripture, or I already knew this in scripture and I noticed this wasn't lined up well, right? So you have to be able to do that. And then if you have close fellowship, like with somebody like me, that's being able to put some things out. If you got a question, you want to talk about it, fellowship, we can always do that, right? So that's a part of being, in the new man. You have to be willing to have these type of conversations and be in this type of mindset, in this holy mindset, and not continue and not keep going back to the old man. Like that it doesn't work. Um, God wants those who are going to be worshiping in spirit and in truth. So whenever we have our individual judgments, and if we're, there when the son returns, we want to make sure we are truly here. We want to make sure that we allow him to work in us. And when he sees us, we are the work that he has put into us. We want to be pure. We want to be holy unto him, right? Living sacrifices with that essentially the Father, the Son, and the Ruach um, have been made their abode in us as also the temple, right? So we want to make sure we are doing our due diligence. You cannot say the same. You absolutely cannot say the same. Everybody has a different process in the Ruach that's already designed for them, but you have to go through the process. You have to go through the refining process. And when you go through the refining process, you have to be careful not to slip out. Because you don't know when it's your time. You don't know when your mercy and the grace is done for you. His mercies renew every day, absolutely, but you have to make sure you're not entitled to these things. You have to walk in fear and trembling, right? Making your salvation, your election sure. So all these different scriptures that come together, right, that I'm paraphrasing, it's really to just encourage you to not stay in the same mindset. So whatever we're about to learn today is absolutely fire, but it's timely. It's absolutely timely. He really is requiring us, which we already know. But truly hear it. You have to level up. You cannot stay the same. You cannot. The season is bigger than any season that has been before because we are at the consummation. That means we're towards the end. So there's limited time and there's limited amounts of opportunities, to really get right, to do it the right way. We're always still going to be growing, right? But there's limited time that you don't want to sit there and just be entitled to. You know what I'm saying? So absolutely, I really truly hope this really puts a fire in your ruach. And it's also obviously everything I just said has to do with your spirit as well, because you can't do any of this, the heart set and the mindset without the ruach. Right. So just making sure that we are in a line. Oh, wait, my camera. Okay, I think everybody's been in. Make sure you guys are in line. With how Yah wants us to really be. And just go ahead and let me know in the chat. Okay, we can hear you. Okay, perfect. But yeah, so that's the heart set, mindset, spirit set. All right. So I'm not going to we are obviously reading from the Shepherd of Hermas. And I'm going to be reading from the separate version because I actually bought one of the books that they have. It's like 35 bucks, and they have a bunch of books that they put together. And this one is from the fathers, and or it's called Ha'abah. So I'm going to read from the second version of Hermas. And because I'm new to using Zoom on the computer, um, it's not going to be um, I'm not going to be able to pull up the PDF. But either way, if you have it up, definitely go ahead and pull it up. But again, I'm going to read from the second version, and I'm not going to read super fast. Obviously, we're going to be able to stop on different points in different parts. But definitely have your word open if you have it, a separate app, to be able to go make sure you mark some things down and take notes and things like that. All right. So Shepherd of Hermas, Similitude of Hermas, chapter 3. All right. So it says again, he showed me many trees whose leaves were shed, and which seemed to me to be withered, for they were all alike. And he said to me, do you see these trees? I said, sir, I see that they look like dry trees. He answering said to me, these trees are like the men who live in the present world. I replied, sir, why are they like to dry trees? Because, said he, neither the righteous nor unrighteous are known from one another, but all are alike in this present world. Okay. Now, so I'm going to stop right there. All right. So just to get some things down. All right. So as you guys can see here, you see this slide up, right? So it says the nature of the path of righteousness slash our walk, right? So there is always something, there's always something, right? On like that verse is something, right? So obviously we have a light verse dark. Let me get that back. Sorry. Okay, yeah, there it is. All right, so light versus dark, right? So simply light versus dark, and we've all watched movies before, right? So that's always usually the plot, right? Something is good and something is evil, right? It's how you would say a universal theme, right? So you have the light versus dark. So you notice everybody usually notices that in Genesis and the creation, right? It started out dark, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, then Yah created light, right? And so this is the big thing too. I notice in this community as well, the understanding of the progress of light and the understanding of darkness, right? So there's plenty of scriptures where you have some like in Isaiah where it says that Yah creates the light and forms the darkness. There's somewhere else where it says that Yah dwells in thick darkness. Especially when Solomon was dedicating the temple, right? It actually would tell you that Yah dwells in thick darkness. In other places, right? So growing up, of course, because we're born into sin and we have this soul tie essentially to the demonic entities that try to come against us and to destroy us, they flipped everything. So of course, even through the movies and media, all these different things, they're always going to make the darkness, right, their ally, darkness, their dwelling place essentially, because that's where they're from. Essentially, is Sheol, right? It's just completely dark, thick darkness that can't even explain. So, with the darkness as well, again, we have to be able to have a balance and understand that Yah also, they're in the secret place, right? It's completely dark. Psalms 91. There's scripture to talk about going into your prayer closet. Now, some people, pray in their prayer closet when it's dark. I mean, when it has light, but also, turn off all the lights and you're really just in that space, whether it's a prayer closet or just by yourself, just in that space. And maybe if you haven't done it before, try it. Like just really just turn off the lights and close your eyes and really just bow down and just pray and just really be in his presence and just quiet, just being quiet. um so it's just like there's a balance of representation of what darkness is, and we have to be able to make sure we balance that. But essentially, for this, we understand that light versus dark, very simple. There's light and there's dark. And then up here you have righteousness, right? So either you're righteous, it's righteous versus the unrighteous, or righteousness versus unrighteousness, right? Very simple. Good versus evil, fear versus no fear, right? So the fear of Yah that we know we have, right, is biblical, it's Hebraic, it's unto Yah, right? It's different than the worldly fear, the phobos fear, and we talked about that in previous studies as well. But research that too. Always try to research as much Hebraic etymology as you can for various words. But the no fear also comes from like the Wisdom of Solomon, right? Chapter what was that? Chapter 2, where you have these people who are essentially living by like YOLO, right? You only live once, and they're abiding by their own laws of righteousness. Thank you, God. And they're abiding by their own laws of righteousness, and being able to understand that when they also saw a righteous man, they hated him. They were vexed in their evil spirits, right? So essentially, again, you have just fear versus no fear. Those who are going to abide in his fear, and which we also know as well that it's the root of wisdom, right? You can't truly have true wisdom without fear, without having true fear, right? And then therefore righteousness will also blossom, right? From your heart, from your mind, all these different things. Your body becomes more righteous, et cetera, et cetera. So we have wise versus the foolish, or wisdom versus foolishness, or wisdom versus vanity, right? So vanity is essentially the things that people love to go for that has nothing to do with Yah, or it's like for vain glory, right? It's material things, all these different things that when they're trying to amass it to themselves, or they're trying to accumulate so much, right? And they're trying to be glorified and all these different types of things. This vanity and Hasatan and his demons, they love it. They love those who love to go after vanity. And that's so much of the world, right? So much of the world, whether it's especially in this meta social media, there's so much vanity, celebrities, things of that nature, people looking up to them and talking about different stuff, even if it's like world news, it's a lot of people that just talk certain ways, and it's a lot that's vain, or it's certain things that's just it's a lot that goes on, that you can actually witness and observe vanity, whether it's in person, you can walk into the store, driving, whatever the case is. We see billboards, we see all types of things, you guys. Vanity, very big word. But also foolishness. Foolishness is super heavy. Um, and those who are very foolish, tend to try to talk like they're wise, right? So that's also another big marker. It's a trick of the enemy for people to sound so smart and sound so put together and sound so like they're saying a bunch of things that's worthy and that's right. And it could be mixed in with some truth, but it's a lot that could be also foolish, and if you're not listening well, and if you're not discerning well, you will fall to those type of words. You will have itching ears more than you actually think you know. And you have to be careful. Even if you are a person that's, you don't have itching ears, and you know who you are, you still need to be careful. You still have to be careful. You got to check yourself. Self-awareness is absolutely a part of self-control, but self-control is also a part of wisdom. It's a part of our instruction, right? So you always got to check yourself, and keep continue to grow. Let Y'all continue to pour into you. Um, but yeah, so you have those verses each other. Then you have, I just put it all together here. Yah, like I should put like Abu Yah, his son, the Ruach, the angels, etc. And verses, the etc. part is like all the other portions of the spiritual realm, all the other portions of, different angels that have different things that they do. And you got like those beasts and, different things like that. Versus Prince Massima, the fallen angels, the demons, and whatever else they come with. Right? So you have, again, one side is light and one side is dark, essentially. Then you have the Nephilim, Elio, right? So we talked about this in Enoch studies as well, that these three types. And then you have that also versus man, and I put also Yasharel. Because more so when you actually read the word, you'll notice that they were battling against these fallen angels. I mean these the remnants, the children of the fallen angels, because there was still somehow, some way, right? The DNA was able to still travel, whether that was through ritual or things like that. I think most of you guys are at the other study. If you haven't watched it, I would definitely watch that. It was a very solid breakdown. But basically, you'll notice, in the word that when they were getting into the land, they were fighting against the was it Anakim, I think that's how you pronounce it, and the uh Riakim or something, and then all types of Kims and different whatever, but they were all tied back to um Canaan, and they would always say it was Canaanites, but it was mixed in with these the sons of the giants, right? And it was just, and even some of them were like half demons and half this and that. So it's very interesting when you really break it all down. But that's what Yasharel was fighting against when they were going into this land. It wasn't going to be no easy, just go in there easy. But again, it was supposed to be easy. Why? Because Yah was always there. He's always been there. He's the one that fights our battles. We always think we're the ones that fight the battles. No, even you have to do the work. You got to definitely put the spiritual warfare, into play and fight and do your part, right? But either way, even in your part, it's always him, right? So Abiyah sent his son from the very beginning, from the very, very beginning, everything has been set up, and especially over Yasharel, he is over Yasharel. He is absolutely over Yasharel, and he's still a light to the nations, to those who from other nations attach themselves to him, unto his father. So he is the one that has always been fighting. He even has chiefs and captains and things like that, like Michael. Michael also fights, right? He's a chief. All these different portions of the word to really show you who's really fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like to be able to really understand this battle and understand, you know, like we really need to be really need to understand who truly fights for us. Um, and I think, I mean, there's a lot of songs out there too, but I think I know I was listening to one by Ishan Burgundy when he was talking about it was like some like you don't want to come up come up to me or something like that. But he was like, I got these angels on me, so it's like this something like that. You can always make sure you go into the word and fortify yourself and really believe what it says. You should know that he's fighting for you, right? Just because you don't see it in the physical realm, you don't know how busy these angels really get. They really get busy in the spirit, and we have to do our due diligence as well and fight alongside them. So lastly, here you see it says demon versus mankind. So I put soul type there. Obviously, I have a study, that we're talking about spiritual weapons, spiritual warfare study. I think that's what it was called. But they're soul tied to us because of the fact that the giants, the fallen angels had relations with women, and they produced, these giants, the children, and then the souls of the giants when they died became demonic spirits. And as in Enoch, it also says terrestrial spirits, right? So they always call it like extraterrestrial, kind of interesting. But they are soul types to us, right? Some of them also are in the air. They have time. They have a certain time frame to be in the air. They're looking for whoever to devour. That's from another testament somewhere and information somewhere. But they also fall, right? So kind of think about that. They can't stay in the sky like regular stars. So you ever remember people talking about wish upon a shooting star? Those are demons essentially, but that's for another time. But just think about it. There's a lot of things that are in the sky that may not be what it actually is, But because man praises it, they praise it, they do all these different things for so many years, certain things started looking like what it is. And of course, people always talk about the technologies that are out these days, et cetera, et cetera. But we have to understand that all of this, you cannot have any of this stuff. It's on a whole different level, on a whole different level, from a demonic level. That all this stuff is coming out. Okay. But again, demons versus mankind. All right. So, um, okay, so there's levels to everything. Okay. There's levels to everything with all of this, right? So Revelation 22, verse 11. All right. Revelation 22, verse 11. Now go ahead and pull this up. Revelation 22, verse 11. It says, "He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still." All right. So again, there's separation. There's always a separation. Make sure you research into the threshing floor, right? You have the harvest, all these different types of things are all about separation. And again, those who are unjust, they're going to be more unjust. Those who are filthy are going to be more filthy. And those who are righteous, notice it says still righteous, right? So essentially, you're being consistent. You're still growing in fear, plus the wisdom and all these other aspects within the character of God, right? Sanctification doesn't stop with the righteous. We continue to grow and grow and grow. And we also have people like Enoch and Abraham and Noah, all these people that also show us. And I want to make sure I mention a woman as well, Judith. Shout out to her as well. You guys know, I absolutely love that book and what she represents. But essentially, she, even after her husband passed away, she was literally like holy in her I would say widowhood. But she was, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, she tells you what she still did and how she carried herself. So again, we have these people to be able to see, obviously. And as you see the son, we know, most of us know, how he was already there with the father and the son, and how he was already poured into, like things were poured into him, wisdom, righteousness, all these different types of things before even time began, day one. But notice when he comes into our flesh, he puts that on, right? He puts that on, and he's still abiding in his father. He's always constantly about his father's business, right? So he's still essentially righteous, right? He was still essentially righteous, even in our flesh, our weak flesh. And then you notice it says holy. So it says still holy. So still sanctification, growing in spiritual weapons of warfare like fasting, right? Not of this world, truly understanding what that truly requires, right? So notice fasting came before this. And as you continue to fast and you continue to go out of your fast and go in, you do these things often, especially pure fast. We'll talk more about that a little bit deeper when the spiritual warfare starts. But again, you have opportunities to read into that, especially Apocalypse and Elijah, where it mentions this pure fast. It's different, right? Then you have Isaiah 58, where you have a different type of fast, where it's a lot of works involved with helping others and things of that nature, just from a basic standpoint. And then you have a Daniel fast, which is essentially like detoxing, but it's still, you're still doing all these things unto purity, right? You're disciplining yourself, being able to understand that you're not just doing it for like something you're asking Yah for. You're doing it because you know this helps you become more holy unto him. And whatever you ask for, he's always going to give it to you in his ways and ways, his timing. And if he says no, he says no, and we're okay with that. But all of this is for us to truly, truly buckle down and be spiritual warriors of God. Right. So understanding that, and then being a true representative of God. Right. So maybe this will be a study eventually later, but it's not too hard. But perfection, is it possible? Absolutely. It's absolutely possible based off the scriptures. And you have things like Abraham, where it says that he was perfect in righteousness. Enoch, perfect in righteousness. Noah, perfect in righteousness. You have people that are spoken about. Even Daniel, he was excellent. He had an excellent spirit. He was a spirit of excellence. That requires some form of perfection. Joseph, does it mean that they never sinned? No, doesn't mean that. But they grew in sanctification, right? And it could be very little sins, right? We can't sit here and be like, well, Enoch, for him to be who he was, probably sinned one time. If he did, he did. But that's not for us to focus on. It's focus on the path of righteousness that is laid before us to continue to still be more righteous, right? Continue to grow in righteousness, which requires more wisdom, more fear, and it's given by measure to each man in your ordained path. So that's why some have different skill sets, different gifts than others, but we all pour into the body, right? And you continue to be more holy, right? So you notice that even in the Yasharel with the tribes, where you have Levitical priests, right? They were literally, their portion was Yah, right? And they had the priests had a portion literally in the presence of the Most High God, in the holy thing, right? So all these things you see a separation, but everybody has a part to play, right? But you still try to attain perfection. Absolutely. Why would you want to stay sinning? Why would you want to have the same burdensome thoughts of man and weak or like why would we want to stay in our weak nature when we also have proof of other men and women just like us in the word that follow the path of righteousness, and a lot of them obviously leveled up, even to the point where you have Moshe, where he's sitting there in the presence. Now, some people say is a father, but for a lot of us that know, he was speaking to the son on Mount Sinai, but all that time he was literally in his presence. He comes down and he doesn't even know his face is just glowing, right, with so much light, and he had to put a veil over his face. But whenever he would go into the presence of the son, he would literally take off that veil, and he was just enjoying, basking in his presence, unto the Father, obviously. So perfection is absolutely possible. There's levels to everything, right? And your works are absolutely involved in your judgment. So we have to understand, and this is going to be a study for later on, but this is also requested by a sister as well. And I think it is it's very good to put this in a study in itself. But I was walking around at my job and taking care of some stuff outside, and he was like, "This is your Garden of Eden. It's one of your Gardens of Eden." And I was like, "That's true, right?" So you have multiple Gardens of Eden, multiple Gardens of Eden, and that's your home, that's your job, that's your mind, your heart, when you're interacting with your children, the parenting, um, friendship. What else you have? You got brothers and sisters. You have all types of different areas, of where these are gardens of Eden. And so when you look at what Yah told man to do, take care of it, right? He literally made a garden. He actually he put a piece of Eden essentially. He put man in that place. He put him in a garden and was literally like helping him learn how to take care of this garden, but essentially it was take care of his life, take care of guarding your life, understanding how to truly walk in him. Right. So we have so many areas that are literally our gardens of Eden. So of course, if that's the case, why do you think Hasatan is always trying to come against you? Wasn't he there in the Garden of Eden, right, with Adam and Eve, and look what he did, right? It's the same type of understanding of the nature of the path of righteousness. So you have to make sure that you're covering these different areas. You have to cover these different areas, and even when you rest, you're resting in Yah. You're resting in Yah. right? It's resting in Yah. You're not resting like it's a day of, like it's an off day. It's different because you notice what Adam and Eve, they was resting a little bit too much if you really look at it. They was resting a little bit too much. There's scripture that also says Adam wasn't in the same place Eve was at the time because he was doing his own thing. And Hasatan came through the back door essentially. And whatever Eve was on, whatever she was thinking about, whatever place she was in, she allowed for herself to be seed, right? For that plant, for a seed to be sown, right? Not an old serpent seed, by the way. That serpent seed doctrine is absolutely false. But the seed that he put in her, that he put in man, essentially, is literally the enmity that we're talking about, that we see in the word. Yah was saying that he put enmity, a separation between essentially light versus dark. He still put a way for us to have a way to destroy this flesh that Hasatan was essentially put a curse on, and that he darkened, and we still have a way for us to truly walk in righteousness despite what was planted in us, right? So it's so much things that you can connect in that, and we'll, like I said, we'll put that in a study in itself. But just remember, you do have gardens of Eden. Just look at how many you have and make sure you're taking care of those things. Find out what Yah says in his instructions on how to take care of those things. So it's not by your own rules, right? So let's continue. All right. So now I'm going to go back to Shepherd Hermas. I'm reading from the second version, so I don't have it on the screen here. So let me continue. So it says, so I'll read from verse 2. He answering said to me, these trees are like the men who live in the present world. I replied, Sir, why are they like to dry trees? Because, said he, neither the righteous nor unrighteous are known from one another, but all are alike in this present world. All right. So look at this screen here. We see trees. Okay. Notice the passcode was tree. Uh-huh. Um, but we see these trees here, right? So trees go through different seasons together. It doesn't matter what tree is on earth, literally, all of them go through essentially different through the seasons together. If you do studies on trees, there's certain trees, obviously, there's going to be different trees that differ from one another, things of that nature. But just from a basic standpoint, all the trees go through different seasons together. Okay, all of them, right? So this is here equating men as trees, and it's amazing when you really, some of you guys probably have connected that before. When you're really looking at trees and understand just even in the word, the roots and the branches, and you understand the son, being the vine, and his father, the vine dresser. So much amazing connections that are there in the word. Even to the fruits and all these different things, right? But we're talking about seasons, right? So Ecclesiastes chapter 3 is always a very, very, very good chapter to tell you simply, verse 1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heavens. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to guard and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. So that's very simple, right? So very like 1 through 8. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, 1 through 8. All right. So again, there's a season for everything, everything. And even if someone didn't believe in the scriptures, it shows for itself in natural law and just in this world, period. Everybody knows by the seasons, especially by where you live, it's going to show for itself, right? The weather changes and things of that nature. Even if you go to a job standpoint, your job has different periods, has different, you know, all these different aspects. Even if you may not know it on the level that you're on, if you just simply ask your manager, right? There's different things that come into play, right? There's different areas where they need certain, try to get certain numbers in a certain period in a certain, whatever. Some people call it different words, but I'm just going to use the word period. Certain periods, right? So they'll start over a certain period, so they can start the numbers over, get all these different things. Everything has a season. Everything. Video games, I mean, season one, you'll be on season 8 the next time you look up. I mean, everything has a season. Okay. So also seed time and harvest. So with Ecclesiastes 3, this would technically go right after, more so if you ever talk about this, seed time and harvest. That's probably the first thing you should probably talk about. If you ever, was just trying to get people to understand something in this manner, seed time and harvest is absolutely important. So Genesis chapter 8, we see that very clear. It says, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Okay? Very, very simple. But we also have a apocrypha, right? We also have these books that have the fountain of wisdom in it. We have light, all these different beautiful things that come with these other books that weren't in the regular canon, right? So chapter 6 in Jubilees, amazing book, verse 4, it says, and Yahuwah smelled the goodly savor, and he cut a covenant with him, that there should not be any more a flood to destroy the earth. In all the days of the earth, seed time and harvest should never cease. Cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night should not change their order. Should not change their order. Everything is in progress. Everything is in progress in this order. From the day 1 of creation to day 7, simply 1 to 7, it's literally in progress, right? So again, we know that literally seed time and harvest, all these different things that's within seed time and harvest, they change not their order, nor will they cease forever. Okay, and I'll even put this in there. It's all bound by a stable oath. It's bound by an oath that's connected directly to his name. So you think if his name does not change forever, and that there are any other names that come from these names, like Yahuwah, Yaira, and all these different portions, right? Even Yahushua HaMashiach comes from Yahuwah Sabaoth. Like all these different things. The name doesn't change, and the oath, the greatest oath, back in the cave, does not change and is stable. And also, it also talks about in Enoch 69 that every time you see rain, every time you see snow, every time you see the elements, thunder and lightning, all these different things, they are also bound by the stable oath. That's part of their praise. That's a representation of this oath. So you literally watch rain come down, and watch how much rain is coming down. You can't even count. You can't count. You can't count how many droplets is coming down. This is what y'all was telling Job. Like, dude, you don't like Job basically was saying how he was righteous and he was he was upholding his integrity in Yah. He wasn't trying to boast in a certain way, but he was just like, well, at least I hope this will count for something. And Yah is like, dude, can you count the droplets of rain that come down? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you blah blah blah? Right? So just really think about it. If the order doesn't change and is bound by his name, and the elements praise him, and the luminaries praise him constantly on this oath, why would we change it? Right? So seed time and harvest is absolutely amazing. And it will never, ever cease. Even when the 1,000-year reign happens, you guys, seed time and harvest happens, but it's thousandfold. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I do want to read also from Jubilees chapter 11. I think this is a very good foundational understanding as well. And also gives you more understanding on Abraham. I think the book of Joshua definitely helped us really understand how Abraham is so elite, in the Ruach. That book, you do have to be careful. There are certain things that are slipped in there that are off. But you just, it's things that you got to make sure you divide. But with Abraham, they did a really good job. Really, really, really good job. So in Jubilees chapter 11, verse 9, it says, and she bore Terah in the seventh year of the week, and the prince Matsima sent ravens and birds to devour the seed which was sown in the land, in order to destroy the land. Okay, so notice these connections. This adversary sent sent ravens and birds, right, to devour the seed which was sown in the land, in order to destroy the land and rob the children of men of their labors. Before they could plow in the seed, the ravens picked it from the surface of the ground. And for this reason, he called his name Terah, because the ravens and birds reduced them to destitution and devoured their seed. So essentially, Terah, they kind of differ sometimes on the meaning, but Tera, I know is also a representation of the earth, right? It's ground, the earth, and things like that. So that's what has to do with it. But you're going to notice that Terah and Abraham have a separation, right? One was an idol worship, as we know off the bat, and one wasn't. So verse 12, and the years began to barren, owing to the birds, and they devoured all the fruit of the trees from the trees. And it was only with great effort that they could save a little of all the fruit of the earth in their days. All right, so I'm going to skip all the way down to verse 14. And it says, in the seventh year of this week, very interesting, she bore him a son. He called his name Abram, by the name of the father of his mother, for he had died before his daughter had conceived a son. And the child began to understand the errors of the earth, that all went astray after graven images and after uncleanness. And his father taught him writing, and he was 2 weeks of years old. And he separated himself from his father. That he might not worship idols with him. Train a child in the way to show, and they will abide in that. Essentially, remember, it has to be from the Ruach. They will not depart, especially for those who are taught in the Ruach. They will not depart from this instruction, no matter how young they are. You have to train them up, right? So obviously, Terah was training him in certain ways, but then obviously because he's chosen, essentially, Yah had already had a plan to help him learn. So you have connections where he went to go speak to, I think maybe in somewhere Joshua talked about like Shin or Eber or something like that. He definitely went with some people that were obviously high in the word and high ranking in the word and then the Ruach teaching him, right? So verse 16, it says, and he began to pray to the creator of all things that he might save him from the errors of the children of men, and that his portion should not fall into error after uncleanness and vileness. And the seed time came from the sowing of the seed upon the land, and they all went forth together to protect their seed against the ravens. And Abram went forth with those that went, and the child was a lad of 14 years. And a cloud of ravens came to devour the seed, and Abram ran to meet them before they settled on the ground, and cried to them before they settled on the ground to devour the seed, and said, descend not, return to the place whence ye came. And they proceeded to turn back. Whew. And he caused the clouds of ravens to turn back that day 70 times. Another number, 70 times. And of all the ravens throughout all the land where Abram was there settled there, not so much as one. Not so much as one. How elite is this? My goodness. And all who were with him throughout all the land saw him cry out, and all the ravens turned back, and his name became great in all the land of Cassidon. And there came to him this year all those that wished to sow, and he went with them until the time of the sowing ceased. And they sold their land, and that year they brought enough grain home and eat and were satisfied. And in the first year of the fifth week, Abram taught those who had made implements for oxen, the artificers in wood, and they made a vessel above the ground, facing the frame of the plow, in order to put the seed thereon. And the seed fell down therefrom upon the share of the plow, and was hidden in the earth, and they no longer feared the raven. So this is a type of machine, essentially, that Abram had created. It's amazing. And after this manner, they made vessels, and machine could be tool, say that too if you want. They made vessels above the ground on all the frames of the plows, and they sowed and tilled all the land according as Abram commanded them, and they no longer feared the birds. So much similarity, so much. It's amazing. But that's a very good portion about how how the seed time and harvest connects. Okay. Very good portion. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Okay. So going back to the trees, right? So we read that, and then we have Joel chapter 2. Okay. So Joel chapter 2 is a very good foundational scripture also to understand when it comes down to seed time harvest and the ways of the day's work and you know the seasons and everything like that. The day of Melech Hamalekayim, the king of Yahushua. This day has no true season. It doesn't abide in the same way as seed time harvest, though on the day that he does return, it still represents the time of the harvest. It does represent the time where the seed time is there. So you'll notice, like in Revelation, you'll see where there's a angel that also like what does he do? He puts his oh man, I can't remember the word. He puts something like a sickle. I think it was a sickle into the earth, if I'm not mistaken. I'll try to find it as fast as I can. But I'll read this one first. But he talks about the harvest. I want to make sure I read that on this study as well, just so you guys can have it, just so it's there. But I'll read from Joel chapter 2 and verse 1 through 2. It says, "Blow ye." Oh, sorry about that. It says, "Blow ye the shofar in Sion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahuwah comes, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a day great people and strong. There has not been ever the like, neither shall there be any more after it, even to the years of many generation." And oh man, that wasn't the actual one I was trying to bring up. It's the scripture. I don't know if you guys can pull it up in the chat. A day that has no night, no sun. Let's see if somebody brought it down. Okay, so sister, Revelation 14:15 for the sickle. So I'll go ahead and read that. Maybe some of you guys can try to find that one I'm talking about. It's a day that has no night, no sun, no elements, no nothing really. So Revelation 14, it says, "And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time has come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust his sickle on the earth, and the earth would reap." Whew. So, but please, y'all, somebody, if I can't find it, it must be in Isaiah. No night, no sun. So sister found it in man, I really want to find that Old Testament verse too, but it's all right. It's somewhere in there too, probably in Isaiah, but 22 verse 5, that's perfect. And there shall be, oh no, this one is the this scripture, Revelation 22, 5 is for the temple. But this is the one where it's like everything is in its name. Um oh, man, I really thought I put it on there. But no, I think it's in. Oh my God. Oh yeah. It gotta be, man. It's gonna bug me. That's tough. Oh, I got it. I got it. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Zechariah 14. Zechariah 14, verse 7. So it's still talking about the day of Yahuwah. And it says, verse 6, it says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to Yahuwah, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. And it shall be in that day that living water shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them towards the former sea, and half of them towards the hinder sea. And in summer and winter shall it be. That's crazy. In summer and winter shall it be. It's not a day nor night, evening time and it shall be light. Like that's I can't even imagine what that even looking like. A light shall not be clear nor dark. That's different. That's absolutely different. But you notice that the seed time and harvest essentially it's like coming together. It's like everything in the seed time and harvest is like coming together, and that is like the culmination of like seed time and harvest. That everything from then on that the sun does is magnified, like in seed time and harvest. Everything that comes out is going to be perfect in that 1,000 years. This is very interesting. All right, so let's continue. All right, so I'm going to go back to Shepherd of Hermas. All right, so verse 3 it says, for this world is as the winter to the righteous men, because they are not known. Okay. For this world is as the winter to the righteous men, because they are not known, but dwell among sinners. As in the winter, all the trees having lost their leaves are like dry trees, nor can it be discerned which are dry and which are green. So in this present world, neither the righteous nor wicked are discerned from each other, but they are all alike. Isn't it very interesting how we want to be so set apart, right? And again, if you take away the understanding, the spiritual understanding of all of this, we remove the very essence of what it truly means to be set apart, right? So you notice it. It should not make you feel like, man, I don't look different. Or no, you absolutely are. You wouldn't be going through the stuff that you've gone through in your life if you weren't different. But winter season, this is winter season to the righteous, right? So the characteristics of the winter season, you have cold and rain and snow and frost, mist, dew, light, strong wind, longer nights than days, etc. You can even find this in the book of Enoch. It talks about the winds. The winds are absolutely important. The winds also contribute to how harvests go, how seed time and harvest go. Absolutely very important. If if you're engaged in husbandry and planting and gardening and things of that nature, you understand that the winds can also play a massive part, especially wherever you live. If you live higher in the mountain, or you live farther in the mountain, or maybe even bodies of water, dry areas, things of that nature. But the winds have very um, key things that it does throughout the year. And it's very important for us to know that. That's a part of the calendar. That's a part of our understanding of the luminaries. But it's actually, excuse me, it's actually absolutely amazing. And the winds, it says it's a combination of breathings, right? So we talk about the ruach, how Yah breathe into man, right? So imagine just like it's not the way that we would breathe. We just blow out of our mouth. It don't matter the hardest breath that you ever could breathe out. We're talking about something different, right? So the combination of breathings And you wonder why the sun, when anybody heard him, it was the voice of many waters. Go to the beach and feel that wind, that nice breeze that comes off of the waves. Like little stuff like this is like amazing. Like it just overfills your cup in the ruach, and it brings you so much peace, and that wisdom, and you start connecting with different things. It's amazing. You know what I'm saying? So some people appreciate it, some people don't. But I think those are listening and things like that, really enjoy those type of connections. But let's get back to it. The winter season, to the world, this world is winter. It's winter to the righteous, right? And we dwell among sinners, right? And we have scriptures that also tell us where we used to be sinners, right? So many different connections we can point there. So it's not a entitlement thing to be like, yeah, like to shun a bunch of sinners in a certain way, to understand we also came from a certain place. That's why you should always have mercy on others, but we also are supposed to judge and as well, judge the sin and understand what's going on and where these places are that are sinful and things of that nature, right? So it's a balance. In Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7, we also see that there is the mystery of iniquity essentially. So in the consummation of time, there's already been iniquity, right? Evil that has been growing from the very beginning and things of that nature. But now, as we get closer to the consummation, it's much deeper. It's way deeper because it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, right? So you have somewhere like also in chapter 24 of Matthew, chapter 24 of Matthew, verse 12, it says, and because the transgression of the Torah shall abound, of Yah's instructions shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. That's a characteristic of the winter. All right. Something very simple, right? Let me see something. And it's like my sister said, we have to help others come to light every harvest season. Absolutely. That's why it says the laborers are few. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. There's so many people that have wicked hearts, and they care less about that. But again, if you care less about any of that, do remember that Yah loves the fatherless. He loves the widows. He loves the orphan. He loves the stranger. So why would that give us any excuse not to sit there and help and do what we're supposed to do? That is required. It's required works that are so overlooked because so many people are so bent on seeking knowledge and all this stuff. It's like, dude, there's other portions of what we're supposed to be doing within our works that come through that reflect who he is and reflect these instructions that you're looking at. Right? Because even in the situations of us trying to help the fatherless, the widow, the orphan, and the strangers, it's going to come with certain challenges as well, because the world has set certain things up over them and they try to do it a certain way. But what about us? We talked about that in the last study was in the Similitude, in the chapter 1 through 2. Right? There's an awesome endeavor that we those who are more have more finances to be able to do can do so, but then those who don't, either you can come together with your brothers and sisters to do something, or you do it on your own and you try to figure out a certain way. You have to pray, but you have to make sure that's a heart thing that your heart is attached to. Like it's not just about you. You were fatherless at one point. You were an orphan at one point. You were a widow at one point. You were a stranger at one point to Yah. Come on now, right? So let's continue about the winter season. Spiritual discernment versus worldly discernment. Okay. So Matthew chapter 16 says 1 through 4. It says, and the Parashim also with the Tazadim came. So that's basically the Pharisees and the Sadducees came and tempting desired him that he would show them a sign from heaven. Isn't this timely? And he answered and said unto them, when it is evening, ye say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites, ye can discern the face of the sky, can ye not discern the signs of the time? A wicked and adulterous nation seeks after a sign, and there shall no sign be given unto it, but the sign of the prophet Jonah. He left them and departed. So obviously, not going to touch on it so much, but you had a lot of videos, a lot of people coming out with a lot of different things about the eclipse, the Nineveh portion, all these different things that lined up, right? I think one of the biggest aspects of this is understanding that the enemy knows even more so that there's going to be more truth that's going to come out, but they also will play on that. That is a very big aspect that's very overlooked. They will play on a bunch of this stuff because so many people are like, they will give their time and their effort and their attention to signs in the skies and wonders. And they don't even realize, some of them, not everyone, that also the fallen angels taught men how to read the omens in the skies and things of that nature back then, which spread down to where we are also today. So that's why it's not by accident you see things like that news about the astrologer that did all that stuff to her family, unfortunately, because she was so hell bent on what was going to happen to the apocalypse. It was a whole ritual, whatever demon was patrolling her in that sense. Unfortunately, was what like pushed her to do whatever she did. And that's from a spiritual perspective, the understanding that there's demonic entities involved in that type of stuff. There's not just a regular fleshly thing, but demons always are there when it comes down to sin. But when it comes down to something as deep as that, it truly shows you like demonic possession, on certain levels. And, it's absolutely real. But going back to the signs and the wonders in the sky and things of that nature, it was so much things that were coming up, and people expected so much to happen on April 8th and, all these different things. And it's so many different scriptures that are not out there, including there's things about how some of the stars that people have praised over the years may not always just be the regular stars that are actually in rotation. Those may be also demons that have been praised over the years, that have been lifted up. And again, this is for another study at another time. I'm just wanting to include this in there because these type of things aren't talked about because a lot of it is not known. And so therefore, it also, people won't even really give it much validity as well. But they'll give more of the things that they can say that they can prove, though they've never seen it. They'll talk about heart. They'll talk about, these different technologies and all this different stuff. And it's cool. Obviously, it's valid. Absolutely. We have some valid reasons to suspect these type of things. But then again, what about the natural, raw form of understanding how to divide scripture and understand what's going on, but not to bend it to the world's will and how they explain it? Because now we start going into what science, maybe we start going into, like how they explain things. And that's not how we're supposed to be speaking. There's a balance, right? And I had this conversation with my brothers as well, and we talked about it. Like we know that we should always acknowledge that there's no way, regardless of whatever technology comes out with, there's no way that it's just by man-made efforts. There's no way. Because this is the mantra and all that stuff, all that is from the demonic source. But essentially, obviously, because they have twisted what has already been there. Numbers have already been there, within a break since Yah has already aligned certain things to be what it is. Obviously, seed time and harvest, right? But of course, the fallen angels they taught fallen things. They twisted a lot of things, and therefore the demons did also, and the people that follow these demonic doctrines and fallen angel doctrines, right? And fallen angel explanations. But when you see it in a community that says they follow Yah, and you see less scripture and more explanation of worldly terms, that's concerning. So you have a very keen time right now where people are going to diminish the spiritual things and they're going to continue to uphold more physical, right? And we have to understand we are in a seed time or we've already been in this time. We've already been in this season where there is a lot, absolutely a lot. Everything essentially in our walk is based off of faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. That does not mean you apply that scripture to saying, okay, well, yeah, CERN is doing this and that and this and that. We haven't seen it before, but it's there. I can pull up 95,000 articles about it and tell you it's true. And then this is what the scripture means. Absolutely not. From a standard level, foundational level, there is a spiritual one and there is a physical one, right? And there are too many scriptures to even to where people saw angels more so, especially Yasharel, leading them or like there was one point where it was like it was a destroying angel. And David was like, and asking y'all for mercy and things of that nature. They actually saw this stuff. There's so many spiritual things that has happened that has come into the physical realm. But this generation, especially, or this time frame, this season, they are trying to put everything in a box, including the ones that are supposedly of Yah. How do you put Yah's spiritual things into a box as a man? Like, how do you do that? That makes no sense, right? So same thing is like, we have to be able to have a balance with it. We have to be able to understand how to perceive the spiritual into the physical and not sit there and the first thing we go to is go to explain it with the physical and say something about CERN and things like that. No, these demons have already been on the earth. They are terrestrial. They're in the sky. They fall. They feed on man. They do all these different things. This is our battle. So the things that are come out, whether it's presidents and leaders and all types of stuff, it is spiritual. And it comes out in the physical. You don't have to agree with me. You have to agree with the word. The word says these things. So nothing that ever happens will never be, it will always be connected to some type of spiritual aspect because that's what it is. Eden was the same form of that. The physical and the spiritual together. Same thing, the garden, all these different things. Okay. So it's there. The evidence is all there, but you're going to see more and more of that. Even I was talking to a sister and a few brothers even about the fasting. You see so much things on the internet and you'll see trends, right? They'll tell you about fasting and the benefits and things like that. And then we have sometimes a tendency, if we're not aware, to try to put what the world says, in their ways of fasting. And then we think that the benefits are supposed to benefit us in the spiritual aspect, but you have to really like step out and really look at that and see if that's right. Do you really see that? Do you really feel like that's something that should mix and go together? When if you left the spiritual things to what it is and to dive into the things that we're supposed to, when it comes down to meekness, self-control, all these different portions that come into, let's just say, fasting, you have to allow Yah to work on you with that. You have to strive in righteousness with that, with fear and wisdom. You don't have to go into the world's ways and say, okay, I'm going to gain discipline this way. And then I'm going to add this into my discipline in the spirit. It doesn't work like that. There's benefits, absolutely. But why would you think Yah would honor something like that? When he says to come to him as a child. Come to him so he can teach you. How many times have there been in scripture, let's just say with Joshua, the high priest, and that I think it was either Zephaniah or maybe it was Zechariah, where he was being cleansed, like he was literally being put new garments on him. You can't find that in the world. There's no discipline that you can get in the world to sit there and qualify for something like that. It's your meekness, it's your fear, it's your wisdom. These are the standards and principles and instructions that tell us what to do. You cannot take the world stuff and then put it into you and expect Yah to try to sit there and work on something like that when you even honor him with your words. At least honor him with the words. At least honor him with what we're supposed to do in this world. Again, the Garden of Eden, the Gardens of Eden. Honor him in all that you do. Seek ye the first the kingdom of Yah. He will add all these things unto you. Right? His ways, not your ways. Do it the way he told you to do it. And therefore you will find more discipline. right? It's a balance with everything. Some people have stomach problems where they can't fast. Figure out how to balance that out. There's herbal supplements that we can take. Maybe there's a certain way that we can do this. Maybe Yah will actually heal you if you ask. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so much that has to be balanced, you guys. And so many don't want balance for some reason because they just are in a wicked heart. You go to a community like this online and you see massive amounts of information, and we just sit there and just accept whatever. People accept whatever just because it sounds nice and it's put together nice. Who cares? Go back to the scripture. Go back to his instructions and balance it out. Be with like-minded, like-spirited, and like-hearted people in the word that love his word and will dive into it and find a balance. Not sitting there trying to praise one person that said this and this is how you do it only, and they never look up anything else. That they're sealing their judgments with that. You don't want that. So I've always made sure on my end, you guys will never do that. Sit there and just take something from me and be like, if it's something you remember, cool. It's something that touched you, cool. But still, go back to his word and make sure you remember that more than anything. You know what I'm saying? And that's most important at the end of the day. Because I could be gone. And it's still, you got to make sure you go and lock into this word. You can watch the study still and all that. But again, it's always supposed to point you back. It's supposed to point you to keep walking in the path of righteousness, even stronger, unto his son, unto the Father, or through his son, through the Ruach, unto his Father. Right? So spiritual discernment and worldly discernment, we have to have more spiritual discernment. If you choose not to, that's on you. If you choose to always explain everything, even if you're talking to people in the world, you will notice immediately they don't understand. You can say all the physical and things like that, but really question yourself. Does this really bring them to Yah? Not back to you, not back to research and information about all the secular, because it's easy for somebody to become a truther now. In the secular world, not from a spiritual standpoint. Same thing with Kyrie. When he did all that stuff, people were supposedly waking up. There are so many quote unquote Israelites that have not come unto the Most High Yah through his son in the Ruach. But they are entitled to sit there and say they're bloodline because now they got some history, historical facts, and some DNA and all that. But they could care less, or I guess the word you say couldn't care less. But they don't care about the scriptures. They don't care about the path of righteousness. What does that do for them? Where were the laborers at, telling them this is the way to go, though? You may have woken up. You woke up today, but this is the way to go. There weren't many of that. And they talking about from a dude who is literally, I forgot what it is, but he's like omni something, where he can choose whatever religion he wants to. He's sitting there getting praised for, fasting during games, Ramadan and all that, and people praising him. They have no idea if he's actually eating or not. Well, he can put on and sit there and put on a meek spirit, right? He can put on this show and go crazy and have these good numbers and things like that. And you don't even really know if he's not eating or not. And maybe he's not, but still, look at the fruits. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you still have to make sure your spiritual discernment is on high awareness and constantly growing. The worldly discernment is not the same. It's going to be similar in certain ways when you're gathering knowledge, but it's not the same. So you have something in First Corinthians, right? First Corinthians chapter 2. First Corinthians chapter 2. Verse 10 through 16. It says, But Elohim has revealed them unto us by his Ruach, for the Ruach searches all things. Yes, the deep things of Elohim. For what man knows the things of man, save the Ruach of man which is in him? Even so, the things of Elohim knows no man, but the Ruach by the Ruach Elohim. And if you go in Fourth Maccabees chapter 1, it does even talk about, wisdom. You are understanding the things of man as well. but you have to understand to be able to put on a prudence and things of that nature. Going back to verse 12, it says, now we have received not the ruach of the world, not just the worldly discernment that we may have grown up with or learned or whatever the case is, but we've received the ruach, but the ruach which is of Elohim, that we may not, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of Elohim, which things also we speak. And when it says Elohim, it's all three essentially. It's the Father, the Son, and the Ruach, right? Different facets of different things that flow from Father, the Son, and the Ruach. Verse 13, which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teaches. And I'm sorry, let me also go back to Elohim. You'll notice in certain places it'll point to three, like essentially. Not saying you're sitting here using the term Trinity, but you'll notice that it'll point to the Father, the Son, and the Ruach, and in other places it'll point to just the Father. So just something to note. Verse 13, which things also we speak not in the words which man's wisdom teaches. Goes back to the same way. We can't carry the same conversation we would in the world, but which the Ruach HaKodesh teaches, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. You cannot do that with a worldly person that doesn't understand spiritual things. Does it mean that you shouldn't share certain things? No, it doesn't mean that. There's a balance though, because you have to understand there's a certain point where you know you cannot keep trying to tell somebody something. You cannot force them to understand what you understand in the spiritual. You have to lay out seeds, let y'all put seeds into them, and let him guide your mouth and understand how to talk to somebody a different way, because not everybody is the same. But you can't get that if you are only in your own ways, in your own mindset of how to talk to somebody. It says, verse 14, but the natural man receives not the things of the Ruach Elohim. They cannot receive it, guys, for they are foolishness unto him. That separation again, foolishness versus wisdom. Neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. So why do you think in scripture, when all this stuff starts happening, everybody's gonna like be shaken from it for sure. It says every man who's alive at that specific time when it really everything hits the fan. But remember, the ones that are truly the wise virgins won't be so shaken in that regard of like pressed and like scared in that way. It's so different. It's an excitement. It's still fear. It's still like literally warrior, like you're warrioring up for your battle. You already got your armor on. And it's like, it's time. It's really that time. And can y'all really imagine it? Really sometimes sit there on your Shabbat, especially rest and really understand that time. Like really imagine that. Like, man, like it really, really hearing the bridegroom is coming, but we got a certain tribulation to go through. And whether you make it to the very end or not, like you fighting regardless, but you're locked in and you ready. You know what I'm saying? It's different, but it's spiritually discerned. If you are interpreting that time in the physical, you are going to fail. Like that's just how it is, because they're going to be trying to do everything from a physical standpoint, from a regular fleshly standpoint. You're gonna be trying to survive, you're gonna be killing somebody that you like just people just gonna be trying to kill someone, you know, like murder isn't a thing all of a sudden. But they're trying to survive to the end, till the sun comes, and it's like that's just cool. Just go ahead and just off everybody that tries to touch your water and all that. Like there's no balance. Because that's not you like that's not a spiritually discerned person to react that way. You know what I'm saying? It's really a balance. You have to prepare, you have to learn. Let the Ruach guide us, especially, right? Verse 15, it says, but he that is spiritual judges all things, yet he himself is judge of no man. Verse 16, for who has known the mind of Ruach Yahuwah, that he may instruct him? But we have the mind of a Mashiach. Right? So you notice there's so many people that be prepping online. So many people, and you could definitely learn from them, absolutely. But notice how many that are not spiritually discerning the times as well, but they're doing it from a physical standpoint. But none of them are also talking about Yahuwah. None of them are talking about the sun and the ruach and the path of righteousness and the set apart things that we know we're supposed to be abiding in, right? Not many, but they know something is coming. Why? Because seed time and harvest. The times will show itself. And because, again, you go back to Romans chapter 1, 18 through 32, you notice still, even when they were able to see the things of Yah by the physical, the trees, the sun, and like, I mean, you got stuff just all over the place, they still didn't worship him. And they created things, idol worship, and all that type of stuff. Because that's their wicked heart, right? So again, with attached to spiritual discernment and worldly discernment, Fourth Ezra is a chapter 16, that you guys have to be very comfortable with and really revisit often. 14 through 16 essentially. But 16 talks about that things are going to be happening. So verse 32 talks about the earth shall be laid waste, and the fields thereof shall wax old, and her ways and all her paths shall grow full of thorns, and because no man shall travel therethrough. And it says the virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no men. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helper. So there's a famous scripture that comes up when a polygamy. I was just talking to my sister and brother about this, and she was sharing to me basically that like there was a man that's supposedly in the Torah community or whatever that was saying that women won't be saved if they don't have a husband. And I mean, just you you hear some of the craziest stuff out there, man. But the scripture is somewhere in Isaiah where it talks about like they will want to basically marry one man, like 7 women to one man, and say, take away our reproach, but you don't have to take care of us, this and that. Basically, they are trying to help the man not abide by the instructions, where they'll say, people who really support polygamy in a certain way, they'll always bring up the scripture that you have to support, the woman, the multiple women, and things of that nature, right? In that scripture, which applies to this day of judgment, essentially, they are these women are trying to allow this man to that they want to marry, whether it's 7, whatever the case is, to not abide in the instructions, essentially. Right? And if you read that same chapter, the next verse also shows you that Yah is not going to have that. So for some weird reason, people sit there and say, like, well, no, he's going to allow polygamy to come back. No, you have to read. And that's, sometimes it's in error sometimes that we don't have different connections. But literally the next verses are talking about Yahuwah, which is also the Son, is coming, and he's shifting things, and he's going to make it to where we are going to put on his last name because we're married to him. That's why he's Ishi. He's not just going to let these women to just attach to this man, because they also said, we want your last name. They're willing to do whatever because they want to take, they look at this man in a specific time when all this stuff is going nuts and just destitute. Like he's going to remove their reproach. Maybe their children were lost. You're going to be able to bring us more children. But Yah's like, nah, this is a different time frame. This is for Ishi. He's coming. He's the one that's husband. He's the groom. He's the one that provides. Right? So going back to 4th Ezra 16, it says, verse 34, in the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their men shall perish with famine. Hear now these things and understand them. Understanding, guys. Understanding. In the Ruach provides more scripture support and gives you more things to understand. Ye servants of Yahuwah, though, are the ones that will understand and hear these things, right? Behold the word of Yahuwah, receive it, and believe not the Elohim of whom Yahuwah spoke. Behold the plagues draw nigh and are not slack, as when a woman with child in the ninth month brings forth her son. But 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pains compass her womb, which pains when the child comes forth, they slack not a moment. Even so shall not the plagues be slack to come upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrow shall come upon it every side. Think about that, y'all. Think about it. Just really think about it. Okay. It says, "O my people, hear my word, make you ready for your battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth." Right? Be as pilgrims upon the earth. So you have to spiritually discern this. So it gives you even more instructions. He that sells, let him be as he that flees away. He that buys as one that will lose. All these different things, you guys have to go read them. I want to just make sure you guys read that yourself so that I don't want to take away too much time from this. I have a little bit more to go. But it gives you instructions on how to essentially live as pilgrims. And again, pilgrims, it is funny, right? From the world standpoint, pilgrims are always associated with what? Thanksgiving, harvest, all that type of stuff. Isn't it funny? Um, then you have also a deep connection in Second Baruch, chapter 83. Okay. And that one essentially talks about how verse 1 it says, "For El Elyon will assuredly hasten his times and will assuredly bring on his hours. And he will assuredly judge those who are in his world and will visit in truth all things by means of all their hidden works. He will assuredly examine the secret thoughts and that which is laid up in the secret chambers of all the members of man and will make them manifest in the presence of all with reproof. Let none, therefore, of these present things ascend into your hearts, but above all, let us be expectant, spiritual discernment, because that which is promised to us shall come. Your spiritual discernment always shall understand what is to come. How do we guard the Shabbat if we don't understand what the Shabbat truly is? How do you cease from working if you don't know that when you cease from working on every Shabbat that you honor, that means it's like you're standing outside or sitting on a chair outside and you are looking for the sun to return. And you are so in peace with that the world cannot give to you because the world hates him. It hates his father. They're the ones who essentially killed him. Well, we know, more deeper in the story. But essentially, you see the same thing these days. They're trying to change the truth into all lies. So every Shabbat, you have to understand it's about what is to come. And then if you research even more with Jubilees, right, with the Jubilee years, imagine truly looking forward to like a 49th year and a 50th year, knowing that literally we wouldn't have to literally work for like basically like 2 years because we living off of the land and whatever produce of it that Yah gives. Can you really imagine that? Not no benefits, like that the world gives, like Social Security and all that, whatever the case is, but literally living off of this land after after so many times of seed time and harvest, things of that nature, and then Yah's restoring people, feeding people. That's all types of good stuff, man. That is also embedded into the Shabbat. You have to understand that. That's essential to garden it because when things change, everybody is trying to sit there and fight about dates and things like that. When things change, when Massima is able to do what he does through the man of lawlessness and changes, is allowed to change for a minute, the luminaries essentially, like you're not going to be sitting there trying to tell somebody, oh, it's Saturday today, or it's Friday, or it's Wednesday today. We're not going to really know. There may be a way to know, but essentially the Shabbat is a mark. And I'm just saying it from a general way. It's a mark. Really understand Yahuwah Sabaoth. It's a mark. It's an oath. Everything is tied and connected. That's why Shabbat is a top piece essentially. It's the top. It's the seventh day that leads to the eighth day. You cannot get to the eighth day without the seventh. You cannot get to the Father without the Son. It's like it's amazing. So when you really get all these things into you, guarding the Shabbat, literally you are marked. You find your respite and you truly understand how to abide in him. So this is also why Paul also was exhorting, not just to the Gentiles, but also to even some of his brothers. Let no man judge you in feast day and new moon and such like that. Now he wasn't supporting abominable doctrines though. But he said, make sure that that's not so much your focus. When you're not focused on the foundation, and people hate that church and they hate it. They absolutely hate it because they're in wicked hearts. We come to this community and certain things are set up a certain way, and that's how people think it's supposed to be. And you really got to take a step back and really look like, man, this is really all over the place. This is what he's talking about with the whole deception and the errors of people's hearts. You have to be careful. Have to be careful. Have to be careful. Man. All right. We're almost done, though. Okay. So now we're on Similitude 4. This one's going to go pretty quick. Um, I need to be able to wrap this up very soon. Um, so chapter 4 of Hermas, all right? So I'm going to read it through, and I'm going to stop on certain points too. So it says, again, he showed me many other trees, of which some had leaves and others appeared dry and withered. Okay, so we see a separation. And he said to me, do you see these trees? I answered, sir, I see them. And some are dry and others full of leaves. These trees, says he, which are green, are the righteous which shall possess the world to come. For the world to come is the summer to the righteous. You guys see that separation now? So the world we're in right now, to us, is the winter because we dwell with sinners. We're in this sinful world, all these different types of connections that we know, right? But for the world to come is the summer to the righteous. But to the sinners, it is the winter. Okay, so separation, right? So I put Exodus 10:15 here because I think, it's certain you're always going to find really cool connections somewhere if you search for it and you're putting things together. But essentially in the time when Masriam and Yasharo, coming out of Egypt, Masriam, and in verse 15 you have, for they covered the face of the whole earth. So it's talking about the locusts, and they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened. And they did eat every herb of the land and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. And there remained not any green thing in the trees or in the herbs of the field through all in the land of Israel. So we already understand the darkness portion of it, right? That we talked about earlier. The seed time and harvest, essentially, you see the locusts also connected to like the ravens, essentially eating up all the produce of the land. And then obviously this is not even the land that Yah chose, but you notice that there was no green things, right? No green things. Green is a very nice color that Yah loves as well. And the trees, obviously, we're talking about trees, and they're usually green. Different colors, obviously, but essentially the base color is green. So you have in Enoch chapter 6, verse 1, it says they consider how the trees, right? So this is talking about how like the world, essentially like the earth now is made, the elements and even the things that are produced here, they know the season, they know the changes, they know all these different things, right? So in chapter 5, I'll read that first. It says, again, they consider the days of summer, that the sun is upon it at its very beginning, while you seek for a covered and shady spot on account of the burning sun, while the earth is scorched up with fervent heat, and you become incapable of walking either upon the ground or upon the rocks as a consequence of that heat. That sounds like Arizona. You ever been to Arizona? It's terrible. Um, but this is talking about how the heavens essentially know what's going on, right? And so for chapter 6, Verse 1, it says, they consider how the trees, when they put forth their green leaves, become covered and produce fruit, understanding everything and knowing that he who lives forever does all these things for you. So the heavens know, y'all, right? Obviously, they know, but you go back to Jubilees chapter 1 as well, or chapter 2, you notice that there are many things that have a spirit. They have spirits and souls and things like that. So the winds are alive, trees are alive, like it's amazing. Verse 2, it says that the works at the beginning of every existing year, that all his works are subservient to him and invariable. Yet as Elohim has appointed, so are all things brought to pass. Again, that comes with progress, yeah. Progress, refinement, all these different types of beautiful things. But I just want to make sure I show you guys the connection with the green trees and then the dry, right? So the whole book of the whole chapter of Enoch, chapter 6, it continues. It says, verse 3, it says, they see too how the seas and the rivers together complete their respective operations. You endure not patiently. So it's basically essentially to the dry trees. You endure not patiently, nor fulfill the commandment of Yahuwah, but you transgress and calumniate greatness, and malignant are the words in your polluted mouths against his majesty. You withered in heart, no peace shall be to you. Therefore your days shall you curse, and the years of your lives shall perish. Perpetual execration shall be multiplied, and you shall not obtain mercy. In those days shall you resign your peace, essentially giving up your salvation, quote unquote, with the eternal maledictions of all the righteous, and the sinners shall perpetually execrate you, you with the wicked. The elect, though, shall possess light, joy, and peace, and they shall inherit the earth. But you unholy, shall be accursed. Then shall wisdom. So you notice the seed time, the harvest, the planting, the mark, right? The mark on the beast, the mark of Yah, like all these things go into seed time and harvest. Then shall wisdom be given to the elect, all of whom shall live and not again transgress by impiety or pride. There's that perfection, right? We may not be able to get perfection, obviously, in our flesh that we have right now. Some have that. Some have eventually, came to a certain perfection in their righteousness, but we still have a body to receive that's perfect. We still have to be given the full perfection of it all. So this is literally telling you, wisdom will be given to the elect of all whom shall live and not again transgress by impiety or pride. So you imagine not repeating transgression. Those who be holy be more holy. Those who are righteous still be righteous. Both of them said still. But shall humble themselves, comes with meekness, possessing prudence, and shall not repeat transgression. They shall not be condemned the whole period of their lives, nor die in torment and in indignation, but the sum of their days shall be completed, and they shall grow old in peace, while the years of their happiness shall be multiplied with joy and with peace, and forever the whole duration of their existence. Wow. So you see here separation of the impatient, the ones that change his order, that blaspheme against his name, like all these things are connected into what Enoch is literally talking about. It's super important. And we've already been talking about that also earlier in this study. We cannot act like this is not important. This is a massive piece. It's a difference. You're either on one side or you're not. And then also when we get down the line in the similitude of Hermas, it's going to tell you how deep these separations also get. It's like he's going to talk about trees again and leaves and things like that. It's going to be some that have a little bit of branches with no leaves, and some that have a lot of fruit on theirs. Some don't have fruit on them, and they have a lot of branches and some leaves but no fruit. But then a little bit is withered at the bottom. He goes into great detail. He's showing great detail, and essentially what he's talking about is who actually gets to make it to the top. Who actually gets to be judged as righteous? All these different portions. And it really, the more you read this type of stuff, the more you grow in fear because you have no way to stay entitled to where you think you are. Even if you're at some place you thank Yah for and you keep walking, you keep growing. But you notice how many people won't Work out their faith in fear and trembling. So when you read some more stuff like that about how deep it really gets, like you really understand how careful we really need to be. This is really life and death. Life and death. Choose life, right? We choose life. So there's other scriptures as well. Like it's talking about in Similitude 4 about the world to come, right? Is the summer, is the summer to the righteous. The summer. Okay. So I'm gonna read quickly some things from Second Baruch, especially. Second Baruch is amazing. You have to read that. Have to read that. That book is absolutely amazing. Chapter 15, verse 7 through 8, it says, and as regard to what you say touching the righteous, that on account of them has this world come. So also again shall that which is to come on their account. For this world is to them a strife and a labor with much trouble, and that accordingly which is to come, a crown with great glory. You have to simmer on these things, you guys. You have to wear these scriptures and walk. The more you wear these scriptures, the more it's literally embedded in you. That helps you not actually repeat transgression because you know what is to come. You know what's at stake. And you know what you stand for in your work. You want your work to be righteous. There's no way we cannot go over these scriptures for you not to go over these scriptures every Shabbat or just remember them and talk about it. Why are some treating it like this any other day? You may not know the perfect day, but guard the Shabbat in your heart. Guard it with your body. Guard it with your whole soul, with your whole life. Guard it. Truly understand how to guard that. If you know how to guard it, Hasatan cannot take it from you. There's no way he can put his mark on you if you have Yah's mark. There's no way. Seal it. Let Yah seal that in you. Chapter 44, second Baruch, verse 6, it says, for the judgment of El Elohim shall thereby be made known in his ways, which though past finding out, are right. For if ye endure and persevere in his fear, and do not forget his Torah, his instructions, the time shall change over you for good, and ye shall see the consolation of Zion. So obviously talking to Baruch in this situation, but he's also knowing that Baruch is not going to just die a regular death. He's also going to be upheld. He's going to be preserved, essentially. Because whatsoever is now is nothing, but that which shall be is very great. For everything that is corruptible shall pass away, and everything that dies shall depart, and all the present time shall be forgotten. Nor shall there be any remembrance of the present time, which is defiled with evils. For that which runs now runs unto vanity, and that which prospers shall quickly fall and be humiliated. For that which is to be shall be the object of desire, and for that which comes afterwards shall we hope. For it is a time that passes not away. Come on, man. Like, why? Why so many people in this community hate this stuff? I don't get it. It's amazing. Like, and the hour comes which abides forever, and the new world comes which does not turn to corruption. Those who depart to its blessedness, and has no mercy on those who depart to torment and leads not to perdition, those who live in it. For these are they who shall inherit that time which has been spoken of, and theirs is the inheritance of the promised time. These are they who have acquired for themselves treasures of wisdom, and with them are found stores of understanding, and from mercy have they not withdrawn, and the truth of the Torah have they preserved. For unto them shall be given the world to come, but the dwelling of the rest who are many shall be in the fire. Man. Talk about a separation. You're hearing this message, watching it again, stop playing games. You don't get to just do whatever you want to do. There is required way to walk, and there's levels to it. You may not start off So like somewhere else, I may be able to divide these scriptures and teach and do all these different things. It takes progress. I've been doing this since I was a child, but Yah has brought me from being a child to more mature as a man, obviously. But I still coming to him as a child. But he showed himself to me, revealed himself to me as a child. And I loved his word, obviously, ever since I was born with him. But it doesn't matter. That's just a testimony to tell you, you have to keep going. You have to let Yah work on you. And you have to desire his everything with your whole heart. Everything that I would desire as a child, I wanted a family, wanted to break these curses, he's given to me. And he helps me also help be a repair of the breach for other people because I desire that. I want to do that. I have that in my heart. This is not just about getting a bunch of knowledge. You have to take yourself out of this online stuff and be real about what you're doing in your walk. You have to really keep abiding in him. He reads your heart so much. He knows your cries. He knows everything. If the Father knows that, the Son is right there. He knows us and he's guiding you as the shepherd, the good shepherd. But the ones that really don't lock in and really think they just gonna go over and just do whatever they want or just bypass what's really important and all these different things, you have to understand no matter how good you feel about yourself or you think you're righteous, when you do these things, it's wicked. You cannot you have to be careful with everything. You don't get to make your own rules. What's wicked is what is wicked. What's deceit is deceit. What's not truth is not truth. There is a separation for everything. So the world to come also, I'm not going to read the Psalms ones. Please mark that down for you guys. I'm just trying to make sure I wrap some of this up. I think I have like one more slide. Colossians chapter 2, verse 16 through 17. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of the feast day, or of the new moon, or of the Shabbats, which are a shadow of things to come for the body of Mashiach. There are so many people that hate those two scriptures. But I just pray we don't. Those who are especially around me, that we have more understanding for this all to come together and how much we should be looking forward to what's to come. And even on that note, in this world to come, chapter 10 in Enoch. And I put a lot of Enoch scriptures in here because I'm also doing an Enoch study and it's very connected. It's beautiful when the apocryphal books connect. They have certain nuances and certain pattern words that they go off of and they connect very, very well together. So verse 22, chapter 10, it says, righteousness and rectitude shall be forever planted with delight. And then shall all the Kodeshim give thanks, the holy men, give thanks and live until they have begotten 1,000 children. There's a key word. While the whole period of their youth and their Shabbat shall be completed in peace. They will be completed in peace. That's chapter 66 of Isaiah, I think it's 13. It says we will be on the sun's new moon and his Shabbat. There's so many things that come into play with the Shabbats that have not been done, that there will be done in the 1,000-year reign, and it's going to be amazing. It comes with worship. You know, sacrifices do have to come back, but it's not for the ones that obviously have heavenly bodies. There's a lot of other nations still there. There's things that have to be done in an orderly way to lead us into the 8th day. But it's going to be absolutely amazing. It says, in those days, all the earth shall be cultivated in righteousness. So you still have seed time and harvest. It shall be wholly planted with trees and filled with benediction. Every tree of delight shall be planted in it. In it shall vines be planted, and the vine which shall be planted in it shall yield fruit to satiety. Every seed which shall be sown in it shall produce for 1 measure 1,000, and 1 measure of olives shall produce 10 measures of oil. And I want you guys to really understand this. When you really see that the sun is going to burn everything, the spirit of burning, he is going to burn everything to purify the earth. And what does that do? It allows for things to be sown in perfection the right way. It literally renews the earth. It purifies the earth. So don't think he's just going to burn a certain land. It's going to be everything from his mouth. His the word is going to speak fire on this earth. And he sits down and everything just starts, it just starts flowing like more than what you ever seen. And even the sun and the moon, they're gonna, in that specific day, it said the sun is gonna be sevenfold more brighter than he is now at his brightest. And the moon is gonna be sevenfold more bright than she is at her fullness. Going back to the scripture, it says, purify the earth from all oppression, etc. So I won't read that part. But I just wanted to make sure I read that. And amazing, this is amazing. Isaiah chapter 11. There's only one that could come from this. The word came to Jeremiah from Yahuwah, saying, hear the words of this covenant, and speak it to the men of Yehuda, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and say unto them, thus says Yahuwah Elohai. Oh, I'm reading from Jeremiah. Come on. Isaiah 11, I'm sorry. And there shall come forth a rod, verse 1, out of the stem of Yeshai, and a branch shall grow out of his roots, and the Ruach Yahuwah shall rest upon him, the Ruach Chakma, and the Bina, and the Ruach Etzah, and the Ruach, and the Ruach Da'ah, and of the Yerah of Yahuwah, and shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of Yahuwah. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity. Equity is a very key word for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. Now watch this. A lot of people don't read these next scriptures. And righteousness shall be the belt of his loins, and the faithfulness the belt of his reins. The wolf shall also dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and the little child shall lead them. They don't do that right now. So it's a certain time that this happens. I don't know how people deny this stuff, but we know how. And the cow and the bear shall feed, and their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. When have you seen a lion eat straw like the ox? And the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. And they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of knowledge of Yahuwah as the waters cover the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Yeshai, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, and it shall the other nations seek in his rest, his rest, his rest, his rest shall be glory. When he gets here, it's actually going to be a Shabbat. And it shall come to pass, so it talks about how he's recovering his people and things of that nature. And then Revelation 20 is a good chapter to read about the world to come as well, which still talks about 1,000-year reign. There's the second of roots talks about 1,000-year reign. It's so many scriptures that support this. All right. All right, so let me go back. Let me finish reading the rest of this chapter, and then we'll sum it. We'll knock it out. It says, verse 3: When therefore the mercy of Yahuwah shall shine forth, then they who serve Elohim shall be made manifest and plain to all. For as in the summer the fruit of every tree is shown and made manifest, so also the works of the righteous shall be declared and made manifest. And they shall be restored in that world, merry and joyful. We've read scripture so far supporting that. There's so much more. Verse 4: For the other kind of men, namely the wicked, like the trees which you saw dry, such be found dry and without fruit in that other world. And like dry wood shall be burnt, and it shall be made. You imagine being compared to dry wood, like getting burnt, man, I would rather not be dry wood compared to dry wood. Um, and it shall be made manifest that they have done evil all the time of their life, and they shall be burnt because they have sinned and have not repented for their sin, not repented of their sin. And also all the other nations shall be burnt because they have not acknowledged Elohim, their creator. Do you therefore bring forth good fruits, that in the summer your fruits will may be known? And keep yourselves from much busyness, and you shall not offend. For they who are involved in much busyness or business sin much, because they are taken up with their affairs and serve not Elohim. And how can a man that does not serve Elohim ask anything of Elohim and receive it? But they who serve him ask and receive what they desire. But if a man has only one thing to follow, he may serve Elohim, because his mind is not taken off from Elohim, but he serves him with a pure mind. If therefore you shall do this, you may have fruit in the world to come, and all, and as many as shall do in like manner shall bring forth fruit. All right, so we're gonna knock all this out in Jude. Okay, Jude is overlooked a lot of times because it's literally like one epistle essentially. But he sums up these dry truths. So verse 10 through 16, he says, "But these speak evil of those things which they know not, but what they know naturally." See, there's again spiritual discernment versus the secular. They speak of things that they don't understand because these are things they're spiritually discerned. And they'll only add their own natural brute, as it says, brute beast, wisdom essentially. And it says, in those things they corrupt themselves. That's how the fallen angels did the same thing. In one chapter in Enoch, it says all the stuff that they were teaching men was vain. It wasn't even the right stuff from the mysteries. Like they were trying to teach some mysteries. It was all trash essentially that they were bringing out. Some truth obviously mingled with a lot of false stuff, a lot of evil. Verse 11, it says, "Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Korosh. These are spots in your feast of love, when they feast with you, feeding themselves without fear. Clouds they are without water." That sounds like something I know. Demons. "Carried about of winds, trees with whose fruit withers." Trees whose fruit withers, without fruit, twice dead, plucked up by the roots. Dude was cold. Verse 13, "Raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. And Shinnach also, the seventh from Adam, for prophesied of these, saying, Behold, Yahuwah comes with 10,000s of his Kodashim." That is on chapter 2. "To execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are wicked among them of all their wicked deeds, which they have wickedly committed, in all of their hard speeches, which wicked sinners have spoken against him. These are murmurers, complainers, walking after their own lusts, and their mouths speak great swelling words, having men's persons in admiration because of advantage." Oh my God. He even talks about in verse 18, "There be mockers in the last time, who shall walk after their own wickedly lusts. These be they who separate themselves sensual, having not the Ruach. But ye, beloved, building up yourselves on your most holy faith, praying in the Ruach HaKodesh, keeping yourselves in the love of Elohim, looking for the mercy of our Adonai Yahushua Mashiach." There's again, looking for the mercy of our Adonai Yahushua Mashiach unto eternal life. Those are the dry truths. That we were reading earlier. And then, of course, we have to absolutely get better with understanding how we talk about other nations. You guys have seen some trash out there. It's bad the way that they speak on a lot of this stuff in the scriptures. But Second Baruch chapter 13 is super foundational. Okay, super foundational, and it talks about obviously Jerusalem and things of that nature. But it's talking about the nations. And it says, verse 9, let's just say, "On this account, we have had or for time after time no mercy on his own sons, but afflicted them as his enemies because they sinned. Then therefore were they chastened that they might be sanctified. But now ye peoples and nations, ye are guilty because ye have always trodden down the earth and used the creation unrighteously. For I have always benefited you, and ye have always been ungrateful for the beneficiary. Very important. Okay, so I would probably have to just put all that in his own study as well, because there's so much more scriptures to understand the nation and how all of this comes into play. Um, but essentially, as far as dry trees are concerned, this would be considered those who are of dry trees, those peoples and nations that literally don't abide in him. Simple, very easily dry trees. Okay. Um, so let's move on. So bringing forth good fruit, right? So we talked about pilgrims earlier for 4th Ezra chapter 16. It tells you how to live essentially. It also talks about what's going to happen essentially to us as the righteous people. There are going to be some things that come against us because it's going to be a crazy time. When stuff hits the fan, it's going to be a crazy time. People do crazy things when they're in especially when they're taken over by a lot of spirits. They're going to come out and they're not really alive. They have a certain mark about them, and they don't, the DNA is completely changed, and all these types of stuff. It comes into play, right? So we're going to experience some things, but we have to get ready for the battle and know how to counter a lot of these things if we're able to. But somewhere in 4th Ezra chapter 16, it does say that they're going to try to ravish the houses, try to take children, whatever the case is. But we have to understand, like, if that means us fighting to the death or whatever the case is, that's where we got to be by righteousness. It may not sit there, it may not be a moment of like you may have everything you need in that moment, like guns and all that stuff like that. It may be just a fight in the spirit, like say Yahuwah's name and cast demons out. Like, what if it's that? Like, some people are going to be willing to really lock into that moment because they're going to be really understanding about the rock, and that's where the weapons of spiritual warfare come in. And some people think that's funny. They rather just fight with their hands and do all that. And yeah, you want to, if the rock says to do something, I'd rather listen to the rock and do that, right? If the son really wanted to fight everybody that was coming against him and spitting on him and all that stuff, trust me, it would have been wrath for them. But he did exactly what his father told him to do, and that's what we should do, right? Very simply, be obedient. So still that still comes with good fruit that you're producing, right? And then when it comes down to the part where it says in Hermas, not to be, it says, keep yourself from much business. And I put busyness also, and you shall not offend. For they who are involved in much business and busyness sin much because they are taken from their affairs and serve not Elohim, right? So some great scriptures to make sure you add to this. It does not mean that you should not work, right? Balance, balance. Sirach chapter 3, verse 17. My son, go on with your business in meekness. So shall you be beloved of him that is approved. Okay? Very simple. That's a positive. If you have business, you have things that you do, make sure, obviously, honoring y'all with it in meekness. Okay? Now we have a more balanced effort, more balanced scriptures connected to Hamas. 37 of Sirach, verse 11. Starting at verse 11, it says, neither console with a woman touching her of whom she is jealous, neither with a coward in matters of war, nor with a merchant concerning exchange, nor with a buyer of selling, nor with an envious man of thankfulness, nor with an unmerciful man touching kindness, nor with the slothful for any work, nor with a hireling for a year of finishing work, nor with an idle servant of much business. Hearken not unto these in any matter of counsel, but be continually with a righteous man, whom you know to guard the commandments of Yahuwah, whose mind is according to your mind, and will sorrow with you if you shall miscarry. And let the counsel of your own heart stand, for there is no man more faithful unto it and unto you than it. So remember, it has to be balanced too. Not to be a wicked heart, it has to be a good heart in Yah. For a man's mind is sometime wont to tell him more than 7 watchmen, that sit above in a high tower. And above all this, pray to El Elyon that he will direct your path in your way in truth. So this does not mean that you still have a balance of scripture. You still have iron sharpens iron. You still have, people that are in wise counsel, and then be able to come to the truth together. You still have all of that. You can't depend on your own self when you know that you're lacking understanding. Know that you're lacking a lot of things in the Ruach. Know that you're lacking so much more, and that you even fell to certain types of deceit as well. And you know your weak areas that also your brothers and sisters can help you gain more strength in. But essentially, obviously, it's always going to come from the top. It's always going to come from Yah first and foremost. Even if you weren't around those people, but you do have to stay in meekness in order for him to pour into you, right? So that was a part of the business portion, and not being so consumed with these type of people, especially. And then you have even more clear, Sirach chapter 38, 24 through 34. Okay. It says, the wisdom of a learned man comes by opportunity of leisure, and he that has little business shall become wise. How can he get wisdom that holds the plow and that glories in the gold, that drives oxen and is occupied in their labors, and whose talk is of bullocks? You would obviously, put that to different things that you got going on. And he gives his mind to make furrows and his diligence to give the kind fodder. So every carpenter and workmaster that labors night and day, and they that cut and grave seals and are diligent to make great verity, and give themselves to counterfeit imagery and watch to finish a work. The smith also sitting by the anvil and considering the iron work, the vapor of the fire wastes his flesh, and he fights with the heat of the furnace. The noise of the hammer and the anvil is ever in his ears, and his eyes look still upon the pattern of the thing that he makes. He sets his mind to finish his work and watches to polish it perfectly. So does the potter sitting at his work and turning the wheel about his feet, who is always carefully set at his work and makes all his work by number. He fashions the clay with his arm and bows down his strength before his feet. He applies himself to lead it over, and he is diligent to make clean the furnace. All these trust to their hands, and everyone is wise in his work. Without these cannot a city be inhabited, and they shall not dwell where they will, nor go up and down. They shall not be sought for in public council, nor sit high in the assembly. They shall not sit in the judge's seat, nor understand the senses of judgment. They cannot declare justice and judgment, and they shall not be found where parables are spoken. But they will maintain the state of their world and all their desires in the work of their craft. That is someone or people who are so involved with their own business, in their own way of life, that they rather not seek ye first the kingdom of Yah and make sure they acknowledge Yah in all their ways and understand to seek what he has for them, balance out their life in the way they're supposed to live in quietness. All these different things that also are in instructions on how to make sure we are not so involved in business. Please make sure you guys obviously divide that even more, right? But again, it's attached to 4th Ezra chapter 16 when it talks about those who buy, be that as sells. Like it tells you literally how to become more pilgrim of Yah, obviously. So doesn't mean that we should not work, but remember too, we had in the other study before this about what if the laws of the land change and they're trying to do all these different things or whatever the case is. And there's going to be some people that are so attached to their belongings, their houses, all these different things that they acquire, that they will abide by the law of the land, especially if it is against what Yah says on how we should conduct ourselves in him. This is why some of the elect will be deceived, because they are not going to understand how to navigate any of this in wisdom other than the Ruach. They did not prepare. You have to prepare. There's going to be so much thrown at us as it already is. This is a whole different level. Nothing to be fearful about. Only in Yah you be fearful. So that way he builds your wisdom up and you prepare the right way. but it tells you literally right there how to look at life for the righteous. Because we know that this world is the winter to us, and what's the world to come is the summer. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't, it's, you don't have to be convinced otherwise because I mean, it's literally all right here. It's telling us exactly what it is. But what happens is the withered in heart, the bitter, the ones that don't want to change their ways, they will stay stuck in their mindsets and their heart sets and their spirit sets. And those are the ones you cannot be around if you are truly locked into knowing that the summer is eventually coming and how to walk the way we're supposed to. How hard is it to just read consistently, study, and meditate on his word, even if it's one chapter, few verses? How hard is it? It's hard because the discipline is not there for some, but it still points back to a heart issue. You don't really love God like you don't really love God the way you said you do. You don't. Sometimes it really takes that self awareness, and a lot of times it does, to really change your ways because it should hit you in your heart. It's a gut punch, and you change, repent, move on. Yes, a lot of you, some people are still in false doctrine. There's so much there to prove otherwise. Look at your heart. If every time that somebody says that, it makes you bitter, it's a heart issue. But it's still a spiritual. Spiritual strongholds everywhere on people, but we have to be able to understand there are instructions for us to get out of those strongholds and fight against it. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, in Yahuwah, we have opportunity, right? And lastly, let's move on. Single verse married. So this is going to be its own study eventually. I just want to make sure I just put it there. Because this topic will come up in the mosque. But so many people are bit on marrying all the time and things like that. So I was able to thank you, y'all, for this opportunity to marry a couple literally in Yahuwah Sabo, like covenant marriage into Yahuwah Sabo. This is without, it's like how they label it social marriage if they want to say it from a worldly standpoint. But they did the Hebraic way, still had witnesses and things like that. People got a copy. The main family members will get a copy of, their certificate that they sign and things of that nature. Very beautiful. But they came together. They had counseling, and they came together, and married in Him. And beautifully too, they were baptized the day before. They were baptized the day before, and that was on my rock for them to do as well. And they agreed, and they both gave their bodies unto Yah first and foremost. And remember, they weren't married at that time, right? So they came into baptism with Yah and baptized in water, in the Ruach, the way we're supposed to do it, and understood, putting on that new man. Like the work doesn't stop, obviously, but they really like made that connection with Yah in the way that they were supposed to. And then the next day they got married together and they became one flesh. Right. So it's amazing, to really have been a part of that process. And, it wasn't easy trying to get there because they sure didn't want me there. But it wasn't about me. My wife, shout out to my wife, she like held me down. I don't want to talk about it because I'll probably get emotional too much, but he yeah, she really held me down. I really appreciate it. Um, I love you very much for everything that you did. Um, there's some water to that. Y'all can get a little snack, you know what I'm saying? But man, it was beautiful. But some people are so focused on married, not in the covenant of Yah, and they think y'all are supposed to just honor their marriages, and that's not how this works, man. Like you have to do these things holy. These things are set apart. Um, you have to truly understand that you have to walk in Him the right way you're supposed to. You don't get to just make your own rules and just tell y'all just accept whatever I did. 'Cause at least I'm married. And Paul said, because we, just get married if you have to because you can't, get over your lust and things like that. It's still not honorable. He was just giving advice. That's still not honorable because it doesn't give you credence to say like when you do get married, you just have all the sex you want to and all of that. That's not how that works. It's not. You still have to honor your bodies unto Yah. You still have to walk in Him. You still have to understand how to be clean, pure unto Him. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, especially when we're approaching this consummation, everybody has gone through different stuff. You know what I'm saying? So everybody's situation is unique when it comes down to whether you get married, divorced, whatever the case is. So you have to be able to still understand how to apply these instructions as well, and connect with other things. But in chapter 7, it says that verse 1 Corinthians chapter 7, it says, verse 27, are you bound unto a woman? Seek not to be loose. Are you loose from a woman? Seek not a woman. And if you marry, you have not sinned, and if the virgin married, she has not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you. But this I say, brethren, the time is short. It remains that both they that have women be as though they had none. Sound like a pilgrim, right? And they that weep as though they wept not, and they that rejoice as though they rejoice not, and they that buy as though they possess not. For as in chapter 16, all knew the apocryphal scriptures. And they that use this world as not abusing it, for the fashion of this world it passes away. But I would have you without carefulness that it is that he that is unmarried cares for the things that belongs to Yahuwah, how he may please Yahuwah. But he that is married cares for the things that are of the world, how he may please his woman. And vice versa, woman to man. There's a difference also between a woman and a virgin. The unmarried woman cares for the things of Yahuwah, that she may be holy both in body and in ruach. But she that is married cares for the things of the world, how she may please her man. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, peaceful, the right thing to do, or understanding the right things, and that ye may attend upon Yahuwah without distraction. But if any man thinks that he behaves himself uncomely towards his virgin, if she passes the flower of her age and needs so require, let him do what he wills, and it's not, let them marry. Nevertheless, he that stands steadfast in his heart, having no necessity, but has power over his own will, and has so decreed in his heart that he will guard his virgin, does well. So it continues to go towards more of that of what Paul was talking about. But the whole point is there's still a separation. Either you're going to be about this walk or you're not. Some people try to get married and because all the little different things that they've gone through, or whether they're living together, or whatever the case is, and it's like you have to understand marriage doesn't sit there and just say, okay, all these sins are forgotten, all these sins are done. It could, if you go about it the right way, if you're going to marry in Yahuwah. If you're going to marry in the world, you can just go anywhere you want to in the world and go get married. And you think you're entitled to allow Yah to honor that marriage, and that's not true. I would be very careful with that. But if you do it unto Yah, and you guys are both striving in Him the right way, you know what I'm saying? And then you guys are making sure you guys are pure. Just because you're going to marry that person doesn't allow for sexual intercourse just to happen, and you can do whatever you want to. That's not how that works either. It's a lot of things that when that study comes out, it's different things that should be talked about. You have to do is hear unto Him. So that's why I was extremely, extremely proud of this couple, because that's what they did. They really sought hard. They fought hard. It wasn't easy for them, but they really were striving. They strive to the very end of, the finish line and starting a new one, but they really pushed through. We had studies, we had meetings, encouraging them, teaching, whatever, all these different things that they would do, and they were leveling up every single time. It wasn't easy. Had some hardships too, and just let it flow in the rock. And all of a sudden, we're looking up, and now they're married. Meeting them for the first time in person, just like, man, this is really happening. Like, this is amazing. But I was always hoping for them, praying for them, making sure, that I really know that they're a testimony. There's not many people that get married in Yahuwah. There's not. So, just something to just put out there. And in the Hermas commandment 4, it also talks about that. It gives some understanding to also be pure unto him, even if you're not married, even if you are single, that is absolutely okay because you're not distracted. And I'll read a little bit from it. It says, verse 26, and I said, if a husband or a wife die, and the party which survives marry again, does he sin in so doing? He that marries he sins not, howbeit, if he shall remain single, he shall thereby gain to himself great honor before Yah. That's what Judith also did. She did not marry. She did not remarry. She didn't need to. She was already so locked into Yah, even through her relationship that she had with her husband, who was also essentially locked into Yah based off of what was left, unto the wife and how she carried herself. She was, and look at what she did. You don't have to get remarried. You don't need a man, essentially, woman of Yah. You don't have to have it. But everybody's ordained path is different. Make sure you're not doing it the worldly way. Yeah, I remember that song. I remember that song. Independent. You don't have to think in the worldly terms. Okay, understand whatever Yah has for you. Oh, man. But it says, verse 27, keep therefore thy chastity and modesty, and thou shalt live unto Yah. Observe from henceforth those things which I speak with thee, and command thee to observe from the time which I have been delivered unto thee, and dwell in thy house. So chastity and modesty, guys, is very important. Absolutely. All right. But again, remember that this world is right now is like the winter to us for the righteous. But the world to come is the summer. So just like we talked about towards the end of this chapter, not being so busy and we divided it really well. Remember that the ones that are truly righteous are full of leaves. They're trees planted in him. They have fruit on them. All right. And in verse 8, it says, but if a man has only one thing to follow, he may serve Elohim, because his mind is not taken off from Elohim, but he serves him with a pure mind. We can still do that who are married, who have children. It's a balance. You have to find a balance. If therefore you shall do this, you may have fruit in the world to come. And all as many as shall do in like manner shall bring forth fruit. It's a requirement. Absolutely a requirement. All right. And that is the end of this study. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Still got some more to come, and I think again, I'm thankful I was able to even do the study, and this is definitely fired up my rock for the next ones, and I can start really flowing again. But again, this is super timely, y'all. Super timely. Super timely. Understand things that we need to fix and operate in, and how we, the way that we speak on things and the stuff that this world is doing right now. They're trying to take away the spiritual aspects of things, and we have to understand the growth that's to come. That takes faith. Understand how to guard your Shabbats more. Understand how to really come out of this community and the way the world wants you to act and think and carry yourself. Study this word the way you're supposed to, understand that this is all part of our judgment, things of that nature. Please reread this chapter, 3 and 4, connect some more, talk about it some more. All that amazing thing, all those amazing things. All right. And I'll just say a short prayer. Um, man, my brother says summer is coming. That's amazing. Bro, oh my. So I'm sure some of you guys have seen, watch the show Game of Thrones. I don't recommend you watch it. Okay, making sure I put that out there. But the famous theme was always winter is coming. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Wow. Wow. They know winter is coming. Bro, that's crazy. I like that though. Summer is coming. Man. And just to make sure I put that out there, please read Zechariah 14. You'll notice also when the sun is going to come. Okay, it's literally in that 7th month. I forgot to mention that in that 7th month, and it's on the 14th essentially. What happens the day before all of that? It's a lot of destruction and all these different things like that. Purifies the earth, like burns it in fire, gets it ready for that threshing floor, all these different things like that. And then the 14th, he sits down. Remember, we talked about what that day actually is. It's not like a regular day at all. And he sits down and he sanctifies the earth on Mount Sinai, which is one of his 4 places that he loves. And everything just flows from there. But the 7th month is essentially in the summer. Okay, you can read about it in Enoch as well and other places where it talks about the different things that happen in the summer and it's heat and all these stuff type of things. But remember, this day is not like any other. It's not like any other. Okay, so man, summer is coming. I like that. What a way to end that. That's amazing. Summer is coming. My sister here comes to say. Tell you, it's all types of things that is all in here, man. All over the place. But I'm super happy. Please be encouraged, y'all. But be serious, understand. Um, please research how to be a pilgrim, essentially. Still work on your craft and things of that nature, but really balance it out. Balance it out. There should be no way you should go to work and interact with different people and things of that nature, not understanding that it's your garden of Eden, one of your gardens of Eden, and you take care of it. Follow his instructions on how to take care of that garden of Eden. Even if there are certain problems that come about, you still can take care of it with his instructions. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot, you guys. Just make sure you revisit this study and whatever notes you have and conversations and things of that nature. But it's all a balance, and we are literally towards the consummation. That's amazing. Um, but I'll go ahead and say a prayer, quick prayer. Dear Yah, we thank you for this word. We thank you for your word. We thank you for this timely message, no matter what we're going through in all of our lives, our respective lives. Abu God, just ask that you continue to pull us towards you, teach us the right ways, allow our hearts to be diligent, our ruach to be on fire, our bodies to be dwelt, to be in you, Abu God, to be covered in your ruach, so we can do the things that we need to do in the right mindset, heart set, spirit set, Abu God. We ask that you continue to allow us to walk in your son's ways that has been set from the beginning, Abiyah, and that has that many righteous men and women in this path of righteousness has also striving or they're striving to continue to walk in you the right way, even unto perfection. And we just ask that we, the righteous generation that you've spoken on, continue to walk in the right ways, continue to be set apart from this world in the right ways that we're supposed to do it, not in the ways that man has set. The way we look at your luminaries, the way that we look at all these things, your covenants, your feasts, your Shabbat, like all these things that we can be refined in and learn more and grow and truly accept your word and your truth for what it is, Abiyah. I ask that my brothers and sisters who may have strongholds, that you bind and you can cast those different strongholds out in the name of your son, Yahushua HaMashiach, unto you who is Sabaoth, and that you truly do a work in them for their heart, especially every day. And also those who may be more on the right path, that we continue to not be entitled, that we continue to work out our salvation fear and trembling, as we always continue to understand that we need to do so. and that Abiyah, that you continue to refine us and continue to sanctify us, Abiyah, and love on us and discipline us and all these different things that we need, Abiyah, to really be prepared for this battle that we're already living in, and also what's to come, Abiyah. And we thank you, Yahushua Mashiach, for you being a shepherd. We thank you for um, just all these different things that you have done, because you love us the way you do, and because you will uphold these oaths and covenants that your father gave you. You will not fail in your father. And you've shown us that so many times. You will not fail us. You will not, you're there. You fight for us, Yahushua. And we thank you for that. We thank you for the salvation. Thank you, Abiyah, for your son and the way that you set all this up. We ask that the Ruach continues to be our confidant, our counselor, our teacher, and for our temple to be a place where you, Father and Son and Ruach, can abide in, and that wisdom continues to flow, counsel, understanding, righteousness, all these different things, fear continues to flow in you, Abiyah, and go in us through you. And we just love you and we thank you and all these things, and forgive us for everything that we fell short on already and earlier, and just help us go forevermore, I do. As your Kodesh, give you all the praise going on in the name of your son, Yahushua Mashiach, and to Yahuwah Sabaoth, we pray. Amen.